So, Todd, I'm not talking to you today.
That'll make for a really short show, man. Why aren't you talking to me? Did I take you off or something?
Because you made a post on my Facebook page about a year and a half ago that I just can't seem to get over.
Really? You're still hanging on to that? I thought we put that behind us.
Well, no. I can't get over it. Every time I look at it, every time I stumble upon it, what was he thinking? So I'm not talking to you anymore.
You need to put those online memories in the past, my friend.
Yes, I do. You know, it's funny that you say that. Talk about a segue. So we were referring to a story in the Washington Post this week. I don't know if you saw this or not, Todd, but
I did. Yes.
You know, in the holiday spirit, with us continuing to have family events and all that kind of stuff, saw an article about a research done in the virtue of forgetting in the digital age, and how important it is that we naturally forget things, but how rare that's becoming because of things like Facebook and being able to archive every single message you ever get in Gmail and all that kind of stuff. How old arguments are being rehashed and keep coming up more and more and more, and people just not being able to get over it. So that is kind of interesting. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. In some ways, I see what they're saying. They're essentially saying that our brains function. That's a good part of our brain is that as the time tends to heal all those wounds. But if you have a written documentation of all those things and you come upon that, then it's going to reignite the feelings. I do think that's true. When I read this article, I thought there's 2 files that I have in my file folder of past instances and circumstances. One at a church that I was on staff at, that documentation from some things that went on there. That very seldom do I ever go through those files, but every once in a while I'll be going through looking for a file, and I'll see that, and don't know why, but I pull it up, I open it up, and it's like you're reliving it as soon as you do it. And it's something I hadn't thought about for 2 years. But so I understand that. I think 2 things. I think we've always done this. People keep diaries. People have kept diaries for years. Pictures can do this, although we take a lot more pictures now. So I think we've always done this to a certain degree. But the other thing is, I don't go through normally, unless it's like when I go through my file folder and I come upon something. I don't normally go back and try to search things like that. Yeah. So I don't come upon those old posts. They're there. Particularly as a blogger, all of my blog posts and when I've been upset and all those things are there, but I don't normally just kind of come upon those things. So that's what they're saying, but I don't think it really bothers me.
Doesn't bother you?
If it only bothers you, if whatever I said a year and a half ago, you're still ticked off.
Yeah, I forgot it already, actually.
I'm not sure what I put on your Facebook page, but I'm sure it was something mean.
Yeah.
Just knowing me. Oh, well. It's somebody didn't sue me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of suing and
speaking of suing, yeah, we're gonna head into the pop ministry section of our show where Todd brings up all of the famous people in Christianity and
inquiring minds want to know, Todd.
Well, there actually was a little bit of news this week with a couple of kind of high-profile people in Christianity. First of all, Robert Schuller, we mentioned here, it was him and his wife and some family members were suing the former, well, I guess it's still the Crystal Cathedral Ministries. I had too much alcohol this morning. I can't even get my words out. The Schullers were suing Crystal Cathedral Ministries. I don't usually drink until 11, but I don't know. It's Friday. But the verdict came back now. I put the headline on my blog. The Schullers lost big time in court, but they still walked away with $615,000, $625. But they were asking for over $5 million. The judge gave Robert Schuller, I think, the $600,000. Gave I think the daughter and the son-in-law a little bit of money. Arvella, Robert's wife, got the big goose egg. She got nothing. They said she was not believable or something like that in court, not found to be real credible. So that's kind of the big news there. Sad story all around.
Is it going to be done?
You know, I'm hoping that this is done. Although they're going to be in the news because I think in April, is it April when the church officially moves out of the Crystal Cathedral building and the Catholic Diocese of Orange moves in. So you'll still hear a little bit about that. And from what I read about the story, there's still $14 million, something like that, in disputes that the creditors are still trying to get their hands on.
Wow.
And a lot of this $5 million, I think, can still be contested over there. So I'm sure it's not done. It's sad all around. Another sad thing I saw this week. Interesting thing. You know, we could make a show on Pat Robertson. We really could. Pat Robertson. I've got a link on my blog that with a little video clip. We'll have it on the show notes. But Pat Robertson came out this past week and said that he admits that he totally botched God's voice on the election. And I remember watching. It was kind of an interesting clip at the first of the year. You know, Pat always does his predictions for the year. And for 2012, he came out and he said, "Now God told me who's going to win the election, but He told me not to tell you," which I thought that's pretty sneaky of God.
Yeah.
You know, to let Pat Robertson know. And I don't know that Pat Robertson ever really told officially what he said God told him, but he came out this past week and said, "Whatever I thought God told me, it was wrong, and I totally missed God's voice here, and it happens."
Well, this might floor you, Todd,
Okay.
because I don't normally say anything super enthusiastically positive about our buddy Pat, but I will give him credit for coming out and actually saying this, because I mean, he had the ability to say, "Yeah, I knew it was a problem all the time. God told me," you know.
Yeah.
But I give him credit for having the integrity to come out and say, "Yeah, I was wrong. Even though I didn't tell you and I didn't have to, you know, I was wrong." So I give him credit for that in a weird sort of way.
Have you? Let me ask you a personal question. Have you ever? And I mean this very seriously. Have you ever heard the voice of God?
Once
where you were absolutely positively sure that it was the voice of God speaking to man.
Right. Once.
Did it prove out to be true?
Yeah. I was sitting in my room. I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy. I was sitting in my room serving confinements, which is another story for another time. And that was the day that I was called to ministry.
Really?
And it was just one of those times when you hear in that way, and you know, how do you put words to this kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
But and it was so totally outside of the realm of anything that I would have thought anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, that was the one time. You know,
and it's never happened since. Not in that way.
Not in that way.
Yeah.
Not that clear.
See, I felt at particularly turning points in my life that I've felt that I have a peace with God, that God gives me, you know. But I've never heard that the audible voice that I have some friends that have heard.
Yeah.
And other people that I've heard. And quite honestly, it would. I've got two friends that I'm thinking right now. One that is just, you know, he said the only time it's ever happened to me, and it's a story that'll make your, you know, shivers run up your spine.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got another one that kind of like Pat here, that kind of came out and said, "This is what God told me," and yet it later proved that it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't match up. So I don't know. And what Pat says is, you know, you think you're confident on these things, but you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me real skeptical. Is not a good word, but I think if I did hear, I'd be really careful about. I had a woman come up to me one time after church and said, "Todd, God told me that you were supposed to have me over for lunch today.
Cool.
And this lady was a little weird.
Yes.
I said, well, Peg, I said, he hasn't told me that yet, so as soon as he tells me, I'll give you a call.
This wasn't. This
This is just, I don't know where that came from, but I'm always really, not that I'm skeptical that God does speak like that. I think He does. And like I said, I felt that He's over the years. I feel very confident in the direction that He's given, and it takes a lot of prayer and all kinds of things to get there. But I've seen too many people say, God told me this.
Well, and you know, for me, part of it is like, what's He talking about? You know, do we really? And this will get us all sorts of hate mail, but I mean, do we really think that He is gonna tell Pat Robertson that this is, you know, I mean, is there a purpose for that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, is he really saying this is who's going to win the election? Is that something that he is really gonna speak to? And
yeah,
I'm not saying one way or the other, but it's like, okay, how about the lunch thing? You know, I mean, is he really going to speak to that? I mean, in some cases, I'm sure he does. You know, he told Paul, "This is what you're going to do," and he told So I mean, that's.
There you go, quote the Bible again, Matt.
Oh, dang it.
Don't violate that rule here again.
Yeah.
Sure. Now we'll get the hate mail. That was totally
what the watchdog site's going to say. We're quoting the Bible.
Totally a joke for my watchdoggy friends. Actually, I have another Pat Robertson story that I will save for next week.
Oh, good.
Cliff, I just found this thing about Pat. It's going to infuriate all of the creationists. Let me just say that.
Oh, I saw that.
Did you see that? Well, let's save that for next week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, too conservative for Pat Robertson.
So,
quick,
anyway,
change the subject.
Yes. Oh, let's go to John MacArthur.
Oh, yes.
Can we speak about John MacArthur? You know, I like John MacArthur. I have nothing against John MacArthur. Yes, John, we know you're watching. Actually trying to find my John MacArthur post here. Hang on here a second while I pull it. I have no problem with John MacArthur. I think he's a good guy. But I posted something, and this was a few months back. It was this year, but he posted this on his Grace to You video blog, talking about multi-sites and multi-site ministry. And he's just really, I know multi-site is not as controversial as it was, 5 years ago or something. And of course, in full disclosure, I work for Leadership Network, and we've done tons of stuff with multi-sites over the year. But John MacArthur here, he said that his idea of multi-site, it comes across to him as absolutely, completely artificial. It's not real. It's not reality. He talks about. And the video clip's really interesting because he kind of goes into how horrible it is that all these pastors are speaking from these screens, and it's all personality driven. And he said, now I know that we have a TV and a radio ministry that's really large, but that is totally
it's different.
In his words, it's supplemental. Okay, it's not the church; it's supplemental. And I understand. I understand what he's saying. He's saying there's no intimacy, there's no connection, there's no friendship, there's no vulnerability or exposure, and that's essential to being a pastor. But John MacArthur is in a church of 8,000 people.
Yeah.
So I doubt that he's able to pastor on a one-to-one level, if that's what he's talking about as far as intimacy and connection with your people as a pastor. John MacArthur can't do that at a church of 8,000.
Yeah.
And I think the missing piece that John misses here, of course, not all multi-sites are great, but the campus pastors that are part of the multi-site movement, they're not the preaching pastors, but they're still doing the work and role of the pastor.
Absolutely.
And caring for the people spiritually and all of that. So it's an interesting clip. Go watch it and see what you think. Again, no ill against John MacArthur. I think John MacArthur's a great guy. He's not necessarily in my follow list for day-to-day stuff, but He was big in the circles that I grew up in, and still continues to be really really big. So that's my spiel on John MacArthur. And we're going to go right from John MacArthur to one of John's favorite people, who is Rick Warren. Have I mentioned before on the show that I am so glad that I am not Rick Warren? Have I mentioned that?
Why is that, Todd?
I love Rick, and it's not like we're best buds, but I know Rick, and he's a good guy. Yeah, we know you're watching, Rick. But Rick's a good guy. Man, I've never seen a guy that loves people and love the church as much as Rick Warren does. But the reason I wouldn't want to be Rick is because he's so high profile that anything the guy Sting does gets written up.
Oh, yeah.
This is a great case in point. Rick Warren tweeted, I think it was early last week, that Gangnam Style, that thing. No, don't.
Can you do that again, please?
No, I'm not going to do that again. The Gangnam Style by the artist Psy has been his ringtone since July 20th. And I thought it was funny. I mean, I tweeted him back and said, Rick, I'm totally surprised. I thought you'd be either a Nicki Minaj or a Katy Perry type person, but I never imagined Gangnam Style. And I think we've got the link in the show notes. But I've seen a couple of these posts of people that are just outraged that America's pastor.
Yeah.
And this is what you get. This is what you get, people. When the church goes, and tries to adopt the culture, you get America's pastor that's got Gangnam Style as his ringtone, and the church has no potency. And it's like, oh my goodness.
I hear what you're saying about not wanting to be Rick, because I mean, if the dude belches or passes gas in public, it's going to be another reason. He's going flaming Pentecostal or something like that. It's just you can't win. You can't win. But here's my thoughts on it. I just actually had a conversation about Rick Warren earlier this week with somebody who was asking about him. And this is what I know. Over the years, I have become more and more impressed with the man. I really have. He is, in my mind, and Rick, and like we said, we know you're watching. He is aged like a fine grape juice. He comes out of that background, right?
Fine grape juice, yes.
Fine grape juice. Yeah.
People will get that. People will get that in about 5 minutes. It'll.
But he really, I've been very impressed with him. And one of the things I think that really, to me, is I'll go down to Exponential. I think you go down to Exponential as well.
Yep.
Church planner conference, and you got all these people kind of running around, and all the speakers from all over the place. Big churches and stuff, and you'll see some of those guys around. But what just always incredibly impressed me is, you can walk around the campus, and there's Rick Warren sitting down with some church planner from, Podunk, Wisconsin. Population 3 people. Just hanging out with a church planner, hearing a story and talking to him. I mean, who does that?
Yeah.
And that's impressed me a great deal. And so, you know what? If he has Gangnam Style as his ringtone, man, maybe I need to consider changing my ringtone. Do you think anybody will write a blog post about me changing my ringtone?
Yeah, you drink the wine juice. I mean, the grape juice there, grape juice. Man. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And speaking of Rick, he was kind of making the rounds this week on. I thought it was interesting. He made the rounds at least on CBS this morning, and he was on Piers Morgan on CNN. Actually, to promote, I think the 10th anniversary of Purpose Driven Life that was re-released and updated somewhat. But I thought it was interesting. On both of those interviews, he got kind of backed up against the wall or in a corner a little bit on the whole gay marriage thing. On both of those, which I thought was interesting, since he wasn't really there to talk about gay marriage.
Yeah. Well, it's anytime. That's you got the target on you. You're going to get the business for that. But the Piers Piers Morgan thing, what really impressed me about that is how that conversation started. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear how it started.
He says Piers says you clearly have no problem with gay people. That's the line from the man. And how cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, the church doesn't necessarily have that rap. We've got a problem. We've got a big, beef with that. But no, that's where they start out with Rick, which I thought was kind of cool. And of course, he can't win that one either way. There's gonna be people sniping at him, either way because he's not a cultural warrior or because of his views. But I watched that stuff. I was pretty impressed. I was impressed with how he handled it.
I've watched Piers Morgan, and I've watched a similar interview with Piers and Joel Osteen that turned out much differently, I think, than this. And Joel Osteen's fine. I think Joel Osteen is probably the nicest guy on the face of the earth.
Of course.
And putting him up against Piers Morgan, he's going to get pummeled. Sorry, Joel. We know you're watching. But no, I thought it was good because this is the few times that I've watched Piers Morgan. This is one of his big things, is the whole gay marriage thing, and in his mind, why logically would you not allow people who are in love to enjoy the same freedom that you do? So from what you're saying, what I am really impressed is that even in Piers Morgan, who has this kind of assaultive personality I've seen on a couple of interviews that he's done on this, even he looks at Rick Warren and says, okay, well, clearly you have no problem with gay people, but help me understand how you don't have a problem with gay people, but you still feel this way. And I think, boy, I wish, I'm with you, I wish that Christianity as a whole had at least that, where reasonable people can sit down and say, okay, we understand that you don't understand this, but you don't have a problem with gay people. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and what was really cool about that, and you touched on this, is Rick stopped in the middle of it and said, I really appreciate the way that you're going at this. And talking about how tolerance has kind of shifted its meaning from being okay with people even though we might have different views to, we have to say that everything's okay. He went there, but he was he was very civil about it, and that was really cool to watch because it wasn't the typical interview of people just taking pot shots at each other and
no, it was very, because like I said, from the times I've seen Piers, is that if most of his interviews are not that congenial.
Yeah.
Particularly when it's talking with somebody that's against gay marriage, they're not congenial at all, actually.
Yeah.
So good job, Rick. And there was one point in the interview, I think, too, where Piers asked him a question, and Rick kind of paused, and it wasn't, you could tell it wasn't oh, you stumped me. It was I'm really trying to think of the best words to use to answer your question in a really good, you could tell the wheels were turning, and he gave a very good answer.
Yeah. I think we all could learn from that, One of the things when I was in school that they talked about, I guess it was a preaching class, was to embrace the power of silence and be okay with the fact that there's a little bit of dead air. If you need to either remember what you're saying, if you need to think about what you're about to say, and I don't think we do a good job of that as as a society as a whole. I mean, we're so quick to put word in, get a word in edgewise, and shoot before we aim with our tongue. And I mean, this podcast is a great example of that. We just babble on without stopping to think about what we're saying from time to time. But I think we could learn a great deal just from watching him in that interview, how he interacted with it. So good job, Rick.
I think you're right.
Way to embrace the silence, Todd. I'm pretty proud of you.
It was very difficult. It's very difficult. But I tried.
That's life change on the filter.
It made you a little nervous, didn't it?
Well, I was thinking, okay, he's either embracing the silence or he froze up again.
Yeah. Oh my! What else you got this week, man? That's good stuff.
Yeah, last week we had a football story, so I felt like we needed to do another football story this week. For Jets fans, they know that there's a local fan known as Fireman Ed, and he's a dude that shows up in a Jets jersey and a Jets fireman helmet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I am convinced when the Jets are doing well, he's probably the most powerful man in all of New York, because he will in the middle of the game, the camera will focus on him and he'll get up and he'll silence the entire stadium. And everybody will be quiet, and then all of a sudden he leads out the Jets, Jets cheer. And the whole stadium gets it. It's pretty impressive. I don't like the Jets, but it's pretty impressive. So
yeah, I saw a picture of him on the story you sent this morning, but I'm not a Jets fan. I've never heard of him. But this was an interesting story. So he's just kind of he's retiring.
He retired. He retired earlier this week, and he said, it's not because the Jets are doing awful, even though they are. And I thought the quote that he said was pretty humorous for those of you that know football. He says, "Listen, I went through the Rich Kotite era. We were 4-28 in that era. Any Jets fan knows that this isn't the worst of times. It isn't even close. It's been about the nastiness." And he goes on to talk about how fans, whether they're Jets fans or not, are just they're getting nasty with him, and they're taking out all their frustrations on him for the season and everything that's going on. And he just came to the point where he says, I'm done with this.
So how long has he done this?
Oh shoot, he's done it for years. And were I properly prepared, I would have.
Yeah, that's okay. Like probably 20 years or so anyway.
Easily.
Yeah. So he's seeing. I'm wondering if there's. I'm wondering what he's seeing there. Is that just the way kind of the culture is right now? Is it the state the nation's in, or what do you think?
That's what he's saying. He's saying it's the culture. He's saying everybody's just getting nasty, and there's not the sense of congeniality. Maybe that's the word that I'm looking for. That it's just people are just getting up in his face, and he's not paid by the team. He's a season ticket holder, and this is just something that he's always done. And he basically said he's tired of people getting up in his face, and he doesn't want to take a swing at somebody, because once he does that, then it's all over. And I just,
Is this guy also a pastor?
No, he's not. He's a fireman. Go figure.
Yeah, that's right. Got the ad.
But it's funny. It's funny that you say that, because that's kind of why I put it up there. I mean, this is. Yeah. Tell me where this doesn't happen in church. There's the pastor piece to it, but I also think that there's a volunteer piece in this.
Mm-hmm.
Our frontline volunteers. We need to be caring well for them. And maybe not protect them from some of this, but at least give them the support that they need to be able to deal with some of the times when people get up in their face and all that kind of stuff. I just, I read this story and I started thinking, this is the story of a key volunteer in a ministry, a key leader that's been there for years, that just gets to the point where, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just frustrated. I'll continue to come to the church, but I'm not doing the leadership thing anymore.
Yeah. And I think it's true also of paid pastors.
Oh yeah.
It runs all the way across the board. But now, are people nastier now in the church than they were 10 years ago? I don't know. I don't know if people have always been nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm seeing it different now with the internet is that people it used to be it had to be people would fire off a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Or they would pick up the phone and do a little gossip call. But now it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's blogs,
websites devoted towards running somebody out of town.
It's websites that release email correspondence to back up their point. From that regard, in the last 5 years, it's been particularly nasty, and particularly public. I don't know if it's nastier, but it's much more public.
Well, and I think this goes back to the whole thing that we started with. I mean, it's harder to forget now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's harder to let things go when you have 47 people, commenting on your Facebook page, telling you about how, talking about who you descended from, and that kind of stuff. It may not be nastier, but man, it's more out there and it's far more public and harder to forget.
Yeah, it is. Thankfully, we're entering into the Christmas season.
Oh yeah.
Goodwill toward men. We put all of that stuff behind us, and I'm thankful for that.
Fortunately, the fight shift then. Instead of smack talking about leadership styles and who should be in charge of the church, we just talk about the types of trees that we're going to display. So
I saw that you found a couple of people that are not getting along so well this Christmas season.
Of course not.
As normal.
It's that time of year again. Should we have a holiday tree? Should we have a Christmas tree? And I don't have much to say about this outside of the fact that I've always wanted to keep a running tally of how many Christmas trees there are and how many holiday trees there are. And so this week I read that Rhode Island, they're not having a Christmas tree. It's a holiday tree.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's Rhode Island's stance. But and this may be a surprise, the U.S. Capitol, they have an official Christmas tree. So right now
they still call it Christmas.
Yeah, they still call it a Christmas tree. And it came from somewhere in Colorado. And apparently they've got some dude dressed in a Santa Claus suit that rides with it from the farm, stops in a bunch of towns. People come out and
it's a big deal. It's like the Olympic torch, only with a Christmas tree.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder how much Santa gets paid for that gig. But anyhow.
Well, I want to go on the record as saying I think all trees in December should be called Christmas trees. Because as we know, Christmas comes from the King James Version.
Of course.
You'll find the word Christmas there.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, if it was good enough for Jesus in the manger, I mean, it's good enough for me.
Yeah. I'm with you, Matt. And the twinkling lights. If they were good enough for Jesus' birth, they're good enough for my living room.
Absolutely.
Okay, we better move on because we're going to get struck by lightning or something here.
The internet connection.
I will, yeah. So no, I don't really have I don't have a dog in that fight either. Do I think it's a cultural thing, and I'm going to call it Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's why do we have to fight about this stuff every year?
Yeah. Well, I think the big reason is Fox News, because Fox News brings it up every year.
It drives
I like Fox News, but they drive this story every year.
Oh, yeah.
They find the places that are kicking out the nativities and calling it holiday trees and run the Fox News alert on it, and I'm tired.
It's the end of the world. It's not even, December 21st yet? So.
Exactly. If only people would just give back more rather than take all the time.
Yeah, we need to get beyond that. Last week we talked about your dreadful Black Friday experience.
It was horrible.
Yeah, still in therapy for that. But I don't know if you saw this, but Rick McKinley from Imago Dei out in Portland, he had a piece on CNN just talking about Giving Tuesday. Did you hear about Giving Tuesday?
I did, and I was disinterested.
Really?
I'm just being totally honest out there.
Why is that?
You know what? I think it's great, and I think what they're doing with Advent, is it Advent Conspiracy? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I think is absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. No, the only problem I have with Giving Tuesday.
Giving Tuesday.
Is that there are too many days. There are too many days and too many groups trying to put out too many days. It's like so you've got Black Friday, you've got Cyber Monday, you've got Giving Tuesday, you have Blessed Friday. Have you heard of Blessed Friday?
No.
It's also kind of a church-related deal that after you do all of your Black
Right.
Friday stuff. You go out and you bless people with things. But there's too many days for me, and there's Small Business Saturday.
Yeah.
So too many days for me to keep track of. But
Somebody was trying to make it Youth Pastor Sunday because the Sunday after Thanksgiving is apparently the only day the youth pastor gets to preach.
that's not bad.
So I think I have a
Not
solution
bad.
to this.
Yeah.
I think we just cancel Thanksgiving. That's one less day, then we can have Giving Tuesday.
We'd lose our day off though.
Oh, true. Never mind.
So I'm against that. It's just. But no, I think Rick McKinley's point was that if he was going to choose between Black Friday and Giving Tuesday, that Giving Tuesday was a much better representation of the Christmas story and what we should be doing. And
Yeah,
absolutely, no fault there. Any other thoughts on that one?
Well, every year there seems to be more and more pushback to this whole Black Friday thing, even though they keep expanding the hours and the sales. It's kind of surreal to me. I don't know if you saw the meme on Facebook about only in America do we have a day to celebrate all the things we want after being thankful for all the things that we have.
Yeah.
Just saying, So I appreciated his piece and just kind of saying that,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Is this really the best story we can tell?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I agree. Stories like that do make me think. I just wish there was a better. I get weary of all of the hype around the different days, and I can't keep them straight when there's 5 different theme days in 5 days. I need what? Yeah. Oh well. Well, let's close with a couple of thought pieces here, quick.
Okay.
I love pieces that just kind of make me think. There was one by I think we're Church Leaders by Brian Orme, where he talks about wives' tales of church growth, and I just kind of took one and popped it on my blog. But this is one that maybe I grew up with, so maybe it's more of a cultural thing that I grew up with. But the first myth, he says, that if your church isn't growing, something's wrong. And I admit that I push back on that a little bit because I've always felt that if your church is healthy, you're going to be growing. And that doesn't always mean numbers-wise, but it at least means disciple-wise or something.
Right.
And I realize when you say that you don't want to. I don't think that all growing churches are healthy. Okay, that's the first thing that I want to say. But at the same time, I think that most healthy churches should be growing or shouldn't be stagnant. I realize people moving out all the time and changing churches and new people coming in, and it might all kind of even out. But there's just something in my mind that says if your church is healthy, there's going to be some change and some lives changed and some additions to the family and that type of thing. And there's been a really good conversation over at my blog on it as far as people kind of taking both sides of it. And let me say one more thing, and I really want to hear what you think about this. Most of the time, and I don't want this to sound horrible, but there's no other way to say it. I think most of the time the people that say that is totally wrong are from churches that aren't growing. Mm-hmm. And they kind of use it as an excuse of and kind of a backhanded punch at the megachurch, that are stealing all the people or have all the resources that we don't have. Maybe that's unfair, but that's usually where I see the criticism of this whole idea coming. What do you think?
I'm with you on your last comment. When it becomes an excuse, I think there's a significant issue. We're not. So I agree with you in your last comment, but I stopped using the word growing in that a long time ago and started change it to movement. There's a healthy church.
I like that.
A healthy church has movement, and the youth pastor in me, in order to make it something that's kind of sticky with people, movement is healthy for churches and bowels. So that's kind of been something I've gone with for a while. Because I mean, if if a church is declining in attendance, sometimes that's a good thing. There's some churches where that needs to happen before growth numerically starts, and you kind of need to, what was the it basically is it's the addition by subtraction type of a deal in some cases, and there's churches where that's a very healthy thing and that needs to happen.
Yeah, I've heard pastors say that his church was a few funerals away from revival.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we saw it when we were in Baltimore. There was a family that needed to go. And once they did, I mean, it sounds awful because the church, we're supposed to be letting everybody in, we're supposed to be caring for everybody and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's some times when you're just not equipped to be able to care for a certain family, and they would be better served by another church, and they need to go before the church can grow and get it to a point where it can care for that. So, I think movement is a big deal, and it's our people being discipled, our people being having their lives change, our people, turning their back on addictions that they've been walking with for years and years, and families being restored.
Yeah, it really comes down to life change, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's relationship with Christ or the addictions piece or just discipleship, people accepting Jesus. I really like what you said. I'm going to change my vocabulary as far as growth, because growth, I think, is very nebulous.
Yeah.
You can speak numerical growth, you can speak spiritual growth, but I like your analysis of there needs to be movement. In a healthy church, there'll be movement, and maybe everybody would agree with that. Maybe you just solved one of the churches.
This has been a life-changing day for Todd Rose. Not only is he becoming more comfortable with silence, but now he's changing his vocabulary. Man.
Yes.
We should probably do the altar call now, shouldn't we?
Just no, I don't do that.
Don't ever do that again.
And I've sung and I've done my Gangnam Style dance today. So
that's true. That's true.
There is a reason why we have thousands and thousands of viewers on this show.
Oh yes.
Yes. Okay, my last thought piece for the day. This is interesting, and I posted this on my blog. This is something that Mark Howell posted. He got from, I think, one of Andy Stanley's leadership podcasts. And the reaction has been cynical, I would say, on my blog, in the comment section. Andy says, and I love Andy. I think Andy is one of the most brilliant communicators that we have, not only in the church, but I think just in or outside of the church. He said, let's say that something happens to me. He's trying to answer the criticism of the multi-site thing that John MacArthur was talking about in the mega church huge thing. He said, let's say something happens to me and all of my staff and all of the buildings at North Point and all of the campuses explode. They're just obliterated. Let's make it worst case scenario. There's no staff, there's no buildings, there's no me. And he said,
there is an uproar on Watchdog bloggers talking about how they knew it all along, and they were right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly.
Sorry.
Well, anyway, yeah, bad joke there, Matt. Anyway, Andy said, here's what would happen. He said, on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday the following week, thousands and thousands of adults would gather in homes all over the city and pray together and do Bible study and take care of whatever family members are left over. And the church is going to go on because at the end of the day, circles are better than rows. And from day one, we've been committed to creating a culture that's all about circles and not rows. We're famous for our rows, but our strength of our churches is what happens in circles. So what he says is, if I'm not here, even if all the staff isn't here, all the paid staff is gone, even if all the buildings are blown to smithereens, those people that are still here that survived whatever tragedy that caused this to happen, would still meet. They'd still be, the strength of the church is really in the circles or in those small groups where people care and minister and disciple each other. I thought it was great stuff. I mean, I thought, now the cynical, some that are a little bit more cynical are like, that'd never happen. It never happened. Monday of that week, everybody'd be gone because Andy's gone, the staff's gone, the buildings are gone. And would it continue if North Point is 20,000 people? Would it continue 20,000 strong? No, obviously it would change. But would the core of the church continue? I think a lot of it would in Andy's situation. I think a lot of it would in quite frankly, not all, but a large degree of some of these larger churches that are built, as Andy says, on circles. And the people that are cynical, again, I kind of go back to the last thing.
Yeah.
Are they the ones that just know that if they were obliterated and their churches were obliterated, that absolutely no one would actually notice? I don't know. That's I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying. Thankfully, this hasn't happened to any church, and we don't know.
Right.
But even if this wouldn't happen at North Point, what a wonderful goal to try and have, and what a wonderful plan to try and have, to plan that if everything gets wiped out, that the Church of Jesus goes on. It's at least an admirable plan, and I hope we never see whether or not it works.
Yeah. I'm reminded of the Carl George story about the guy going to the hospital, and how all of a sudden, people from the church started showing up and making sure that they were cared for, and meals and all that kind of stuff, and nobody was paid. And then pastor finally shows up, and they get asked, well, how many pastors are there at your church? Because everybody keeps showing up. And I think there's something to that. There's something to building that DNA and that culture into a church. And I agree with you. I think we really like to snipe at the bigger guys. And say that they're all fluff or all this or all that, and they've built a culture that will probably survive.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that a lot of people think about these larger guys, the guys with the larger churches, is that it's all built on personality, and that they have no clue what's going to happen when they leave. And I know internally at a lot of these places, it's a concern, but there's a plan in place, and it's not that these guys are, flying blind without a plan. To be honest, you don't get a church that large without strategic planning.
Right.
So for outsiders to think, well, when Andy dies or Andy gets hit by a bus, this whole thing goes away. No, there's a lot more thought and planning that have gone into that, and
yeah.
Andy's no spring chicken these days either. So a lot of these guys are constantly, they very much want the church that they helped found to continue to thrive for the next generation, and they know that once they hit their 50s and their 60s, that's just a difficult thing to. They don't want their church to be a museum any more than anybody else does. But anyway, I'm off my high horse.
And by the way, since we're talking about Andy, and Andy, I do know you're watching.
Yes. Hey, Andy. What up?
Hey, how you doing? His book is the Deep and Wide. I'm a fan, man. I am a fan, and he talks in there about how even now he realizes some of this stuff that he doesn't speak specifically to the idea of what happens when he goes away, but he does talk about building a culture where he understands that he's going to really love everything that they're doing, even when the culture doesn't, and bringing in people to push him on that kind of thing and say, look, this worked 5 years ago, but it doesn't work anymore, and we need to change it. And so he's got that kind of foresight and that kind of thinking, and baked that into the culture of North Point to the point where are they going to continue on at 20,000 or however many people after he leaves? Maybe not, but I still think they're going to do pretty cool things and really be able to continue a great deal of what they're currently doing. So Yep, I think so. That's on my reading list. I just got the full collection of John MacArthur and John Maxwell books that I'm trying to wade through. So as soon as I get through all that, I'm going to read Andy's new one. Outstanding. Outstanding. So is that John MacArthur's Guide to Going Multi-Site?
Yeah, it's a very short book.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you my John MacArthur story?
No.
Oh my goodness. I have the audio recording somewhere. I'll have to get that out and repost it. I think it's hilarious. Who was it? I don't even remember. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago. John MacArthur was doing a radio interview with one of these kind of watchdoggy guys. I don't remember who it was, and I don't even remember how my name got brought up. But the interviewer asked the guy, he read something on my blog that some other person had said something about John MacArthur, but rather than attributing it to this other person, he attributed it to me. And he said, "No, so what do you think about Todd Rhodes here, who says that," and I don't even remember what it was about. "What do you think about this?" And John MacArthur started answering the question. He got about 2 sentences in, and he said, Who's this Todd Rhodes guy? Anyway, Todd who? He said, Todd who? He said, who's this Todd who said this? So that was my claim to fame. That's as close as I've ever gotten other than row 25 in College Chapel of being MacArthur. But I'm affectionately known as Todd who.
Todd who? Yes.
So
he's been watching ever since.
I don't think so.
No.
I'm pretty sure he's one that's not watching.
It's a shame.
I don't think he's a Todd and Matt fanboy.
Something to strive for.
Yeah, really. I think we've offended more people than we've gained.
Outstanding.
You know, I really enjoy this. There's never, and Matt and I have joked kind of off camera, that there's so much stuff that we just don't include. I think we probably went long today, but it's been fun. But there's 10 or 15 other stories that we could have easily included. The church, I love the church, but the church is so quirky and so fun, and so many great things that are happening in the church, and so many things that just turn your stomach that happen in the church. But I love to read about it, report about it, and talk about it. It's been fun to kind of share.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I know that we may have poked fun at the Baptists in the past, once or twice. It's probably mostly Todd.
Which I am one. I still consider myself one. Deep down.
Me too. But I do have to throw some props out. We have. I think I told you last week that we had a group coming up from the Mid-Maryland Baptist Association to do some disaster recovery work. We got like 30 guys up here that sleeping on church floors and drinking bad coffee to go out and start gutting homes down on the South Shore of Long Island. So I do have to give the Mid-Maryland Baptist Association some props there, because we also might poke a little fun every now and then. So
you only poke fun at those that you love.
Exactly. Usually, yeah.
So yeah.
So
okay. Anything else going on?
Yeah, just kind of running around, making sure these guys are in good shape, and doing odds and ends. That sounds like I'm in the mafia, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Are you?
A little bit. Well, we don't talk about that. There's no such thing.
Yeah, my family thinks I'm like a secret agent because nobody knows what I do. So, and I don't give them the URL to this show because they would just. I'm more confused now than what I was.
It's a wise man right there. So, what do you got going on? You had the Nines replay last.
We had the Nines replay this week and had a lot of people come and watch into that. I'm actually going to take a few days off next week and with absolutely nothing planned. We'll still do the show.
Cool.
If you're around, but I'm just going to kind of kick back. I never was able to really take a week off after the Nines, so I'm ready just to kind of veg for a week. So it's going to be nice.
Nice. Very cool. So honey-do list or not even that?
I've I've not suggested a honeydew list, and I'm sure there will be one, but nothing significant. The benefit of being totally inept at any kind of home improvement really keeps the honeydew list at a minimum, which is the way I like it.
Well done. Well done.
So, well, all right. We thank everybody for watching, and
yeah. Until next week. So when we do it all again and see what Pat Robertson has to say about the creation movement.
Yes, that'll be thrilling.
Yes, that's a teaser. We're getting high level. So.
We're getting there. When we officially launch the show early next year, it's going to be good.
It's going to be incredible.
Yes, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Well, we did get good news though this week. We have been picked up for a second season, so we will be back the first of the year.
Yeah.
So we found that out. Found that out from the powers that be this week, yesterday actually. So
outstanding.
I couldn't be more.
Now, did they come through with the upping of the salary?
No, and that partially, I think we were set for the salary increase until we lost the Lifeway sponsorship.
Oh, dang it!
So they're going to hold off the increases until we can find another sponsor.
We have to get Lifeway back.
Well, maybe next week we can make it Lifeway week and beg and plead.
Oh, okay.
To all our friends.
We can just start doing a telethon, man. That could be fun.
We could.
No, you're not feeling that, are you?
No, I'm actually thinking that's a good idea.
I don't know who the one viewer is that's been watching this the whole time, but I hope they're rich. Because only you can make it different.
Maybe if we came up with a day, like it could be Filter Friday.
Filter Friday. But they've already got like a Wednesday or a Friday day. We need something like a Wednesday. I think that's the only day left, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's think about that.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with that. We'll patent it. So.
Yes.